everyone. We have reached our quarter mark in the meeting. Is everybody ready? Just checking to make sure this thing is on. I'm a second grade teacher, and in my classroom, this symbol means I need the restroom. So if you need to get up and excuse yourself, we'll get the stuffed alligator that I have, and we'll put that on your desk, and you can head out to the restroom and then return. I do feel badly for the people who had to head out because the diamond earring raffle, oh, no, I'm sorry, that's been rescheduled. You'll have to come to our next event. First and foremost, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm one of the new gals. I'm Commissioner Marilyn. I'm a second grade teacher from Broward County, Florida. I'm a mom of an 11-year-old who has recently given me a new gray streak. You guys can look at it right here. A wife and a busy lady. And I'm here to tell you that you have homework, because teachers love nothing more than giving people homework. So if you don't mind, please take out your cell phones. You have one, you have it, take it out. Put a reminder in your calendar. You can decide, do you want it to be in a week, in 2 weeks, or in a month? But you're gonna go ahead and create an event called Check In With Yourself. And when you decide to check in with yourself, here's your homework that I'm asking you to do. Yes, we still have quite a bit of amazing speakers who are coming to talk to us today, but you're gonna have a takeaway from this experience. It's not enough to just leave here and think that was a great event, because it's a phenomenal event, ladies. I want you to check in with yourself with what you're going to do. What is your action plan to use that advice, that new connection, that new network, that new recipe, that new piece of gossip, whatever it is that you gained from today to move forward. And again, if you need the restroom, please just hold up the two. So it is my privilege and honor to let you know that one of our goals of this event is to equip women with tools they can use to make changes in their communities and across the state. To do so effectively, we need to know how to use data to tell the story of what is happening. Data-informed decisions are so important for you to be the expert and to hold yourselves accountable. It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Marilyn Stephens, who currently serves as the Data Dissemination Specialist at the United States Census Bureau. She's going to show us firsthand how to access current and accurate data about Florida women and families. Welcome.
Well, the first thing I need to do is take my mic off mute. Regrettably, I'm not with you in person today. We have some strange traveling rules this time of year. And I'd already booked another event tomorrow, so I'll have to leave after this and head to the airport. But I really, and she talked about, so I want to share my screen. And I'm going to first share this PowerPoint, and then I'm going to go live. Okay, you can see my screen, so I want to get in slide view. There we are. I want to get in slide view. And there's just a few things that I want to share with you. Anything in terms that it will affect, is going to affect women. And like Dr. Goldsmith said, that Florida is now the third largest state. And that happened in 2014 when we leapfrogged ahead of New York. Now, New York was also growing, but not at the rate of Florida. We were growing at the rate of 802 people a day. So that's tremendous growth. So these are the 10 largest states. And of course, we don't care what the other ones are as long as we're in the number. This is another fact from the 2020 census about Florida. Florida was only one of 6 states to gain a congressional seat. So we have increased our voice in Congress. Therefore, we have widened the pipeline of resources. And that's going to affect the women of Florida. And when we look at each state, we see there were only 3 states actually lost population, Mississippi, Illinois, and West Virginia. But Florida grew by 14.6% over the decade. And we know that's because of women. They may not realize that, but that's the truth. And then Florida has another distinction. It's one of 4 states that occupy 144 of the 435 seats in Congress. That's a really big deal. Can you imagine? So here's Florida's population, and as you can see that we really grew. Many of you are probably saying, well, what happened about our overseas population? Well, many of the government agencies were not stationing as many people overseas as in previous decades. So as you can see, not just in Florida, but nationwide, the overseas population for the state really went down tremendously. But because of this high growth in the resident population, it's just so fantastic. When you talk about data, I want you to think about this. We collect a lot of data. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, we've got hundreds, thousands of people in the field collecting data on crime, health, unemployment. You hear about Dr. Goldsmith talk about the unemployment rate being low, and you get that message the first Friday of every month. You hear that on radio, TV, on all your social media platforms. Well, the Census Bureau collects that data for the Department of Labor. We collect it under what we call the Current Population Survey, and we've been doing that since the late 40s. So we're out in the field every day collecting all sorts of data, even when we have a census year. But most people know us by our decennial censuses that we are constitutionally mandated to collect every 10 years. And here's a trivia question: in years ending in 0. So the last census was, of course, 2020, which none of us will ever forget 2020. I even have a mug that I gave to my friends with their names on it, and it shows all the events of 2020. And then we have a population estimates program, which most local governments are very familiar with, because every year we put out estimates of the population, and then we add some other characteristics. We add in sex, and then we add in race, Hispanic origin, and that is a highly sought after program. I look for it every year because it shows where the growth is coming from. Is it natural increase? In other words, more births and deaths in a certain entity, or is it domestic or international migration? And to give you an example of what I mean by that, is that when the 2020 redistricting file was released, and I saw where California had lost a congressional seat, I said, what? How could that happen? And the first place I looked was at the population estimates, the last population estimate, to see what happened in California. So when I looked at it, I saw that they had a number of more births than deaths. Okay, that was good. But when I looked at net migration, I saw that California lost 910,000 people, fled the state. And their international net migration was 1.1 million, which was good, but it was not enough to offset that 910,000 population loss. They would have had to have 2 million on net international migration to offset that loss. And that's how they lost a congressional seat. So you see, the population estimates are really important. I saved the best for last. The American Community Survey, if you have not heard about it or you have not used any of the data, this is going to be your new best friend. You're going to want to have an American Community Survey tattoo. You're going to be so happy about this. And now the American Community Survey, for those of you that are really young like I am, you remember in the 2000 census that we had a long form and a short form. And if you were a grant writer or you were seeking money for a program, it's that long form that had all that social, economic, and housing data that you loved. So Community organizations as well as local governments told the Census Bureau that they needed to have that data more frequently than once every decade. So in 2005, we rolled out the American Community Survey in every county in the nation. And it really is a long form that we are familiar with from the 2000 census, but it's on steroids, has much more in it. So we survey 250,000 households a month, 3.5 million a year. And we come out with some of the most life-changing data. That's the gospel according to St. Marilyn, chapter 5, verses 6 through 8, which may or may not be true. But some of the most fantastic data. And why do I say that? There are more than 1,500 tables. In other words, there are 1,558 tables from the American Community Survey. That's a lot of data. There's nothing you can even think of that the American Community Survey has not collected and that you won't be able to find. And the tables are in what I call different categories. They're the ranking tables. Now, they're the easiest because they have all 50 states ranked by about 90 characteristics. The data profiles, which I'm going to show you how to access those. Those data profiles are very important because there are only 4 tables on the data profiles. You'll get a demographic and housing profile, a social profile, an economic profile, and a housing profile. So that gives you the summary of the subjects in the American Community Survey. And then once you look at those, you'll say, wow, this is superior data, but I need more about this subject or that subject. So then you go to the subject tables. So it's in those subject tables where we got those 1,500 tables with the subject tables. Welcome to Florida, where we are 50.8% of the population. So if Florida is growing, it's because of the female population. In 2016, and every year you hear about that females earn less than males. And in 2016, we earned 80.5% to every dollar earned by males. So I wanted to look to see looked at one of the ranking tables to see where the state of Florida ranked among the states. So I didn't want to put the entire table up here. I just wanted to put the part up here where Florida ranked. And as you can see, that Florida is in the bottom third of the states, right? Look at this. We're 42 when it comes to full-time female workers, year-round full-time female workers. For men, we're 49. So let's take a look at educational attainment. We rank that low, but let's look at educational attainment. The Florida average is 88.4, which is about where the national average is. Bachelor's degree, 30.7, nationally is 33%. But then I wanted to look at where we were as a state. So when you look generally at the 25 and over group, women are 89.1% high school graduates. The men in the state, 87.6. Bachelor's degree, 30.9 for women, 30.5 for men. And as you can see, the women are above the Florida average. And then I want to break it down by age cohorts. So I looked at 25 to 34, high school graduates, excellent, 92.5, men, 88.9. And bachelor's degrees, above 35 to 44, still great, 91.1. And high school graduates to men, 86.7. And then bachelor's degrees really high amongst this cohort, 37.8, 30%. And then the 45 to 64, because when you look at economics, and Dr. Goldsmith will tell you, we consider productive years as between 18 and 64. Well, I take exception to that, but that's another workshop. So when you look at 45 to 64, and you see where women are, but When you get to 65 and over, there's a different data point. Women just fall short in high school diplomas and way short in college degrees. So this gives you, probably many of you that really look into the evolution of women, and you will see with the 65 and over group, they came through a different time when education was not really emphasized for women, and it shows up here in the 65 and over group. Women got married earlier, had families, their educational pursuits were put on hold, and it tells in this particular data point. So now I want to go live. I want to go to the census site, so I'm going to stop. I'm going to put up a new share. And I'm going to go to census.gov. Maybe not. Let me try again. Of course, technology always works perfectly every time. So. No, let me try this again. Okay, this is where I am. I'm in data.census.gov. I'm going to come out of this. Okay, this is data.census.gov. And here you can go anywhere. I suggest you go to our newsroom often, because when you go to the newsroom, we have a lot of news releases that we put out, and this will show you how to present data in a narrative form. Also, we have a statistics in schools program. So I was happy to hear from that second grade teacher that introduced me, and of course, in Broward County, where I reside. And when my mother retired from the Broward School District, she was the longest serving educator in the district at the time. So I'm in good company. But here is where you can go to browse topics. Topics on age, on business. I want to take you over to right here before I go in to show you the data. I want to look at a topic that says income and poverty. And then when I get to this portal, I want to click on poverty. And then the first entry here says poverty thresholds. And as you can see, the poverty thresholds have been calculated since 1959. But there's been a difference, as you can see the header, from 59 to 79, poverty thresholds were by the sex of the head of the household, the size of the family, the number of children, and if it was a farm or non-farm residence. And then starting in 1980, it went to poverty thresholds were by the size of the family and the number of children. The poverty thresholds, these are the official ones, they do not change depending on where you live in the nation. So I'm going to open the 2021 poverty thresholds. And as you can see, these are the official poverty thresholds. So many of you may not have seen these, and many of you work with this all the time, and you may have. These are when we say a person's in poverty, these are the official numbers. And because many women are heads of households, when we're looking to see what type of assistance they need, as Dr. Goldsmith talked about, housing, food insecurity, having to get back and forth to work, to commute, whether it's by their car or public transportation, all of these things play in, but these are the official poverty thresholds. So I want you to not only see those, but to actually know where to get them. So now we're going to get down to some serious business. I'm going to go into our data main. You don't have to go through census.gov to get to our search engine. We have a main search engine is data.census.gov. Data.census.gov. But we have all types of other types of tools that are fun. But the one where all the 1,558 stats are, that's in data.census.gov. Also, our visualizations. You can go back and look at the years. We have a lot of interactive visualizations. Our team is just fantastic. If I could just stay in Washington and work with them 24/7 without pay, I would do that, but don't tell them. And then we have data gems. What these are mini workshops or just small vignettes on how to access the data. You can get on those, and so you can learn at your leisure. And then we do webinars every month, and you can look at the webinar schedule. Some of them, of course, may be closed out. You may want to get on a waiting list. I completed one on grant writing a couple of weeks ago. We had 1,800 people registered. So I don't know how many were not able to get on. But we do post the video and all the materials. So let's go to data.census.gov. When you go to data.census.gov, I recommend that you click on Advanced Search. Now, many of the tables that once you use them, you're going to use them all the time. And remember, we only release these data every year. So data that you use all the time, some of you may want, when you download it to the Excel spreadsheet, you'll have it saved. You'll know what the table identified number is because you use it all the time. Now, I talked about the ranking tables. And I talked about the data profile. So we're going to look at first a data profile. Remember, there are 4 data profiles, and the identified number is going to be DP, David Paul, 05 is the general one. So I'm going to put that in, DP 05. And as you can see, excuse me, let me get some water. I get so excited. Calm down, Marilyn. Okay. And you saw in a flash, you had several tables come up and they went away because that's all of the profiles. Let's see if I go back and see if they'll flash up again. Nah, okay. Okay, they're not playing. Okay, so I'm going to click on this data profile. And then I'm going to select the geography. This is where it gets interesting. As you can see, I can get it by the nation, state, county, place, and in census speak, place means city, town, or village. You've got zip code, you've got census tract, because those are areas that many of your service areas are. So I'm going to select the state of Florida for this demonstration. And I have the nation, but I'm going to take the nation out of the filter. And then I'm going to X this out. And I'm going to move this over so that I can see the table. So now I can see the table. Now, because everything we do besides a census every 10 years is an estimate. So we have a margin of error. If you're dealing with an economics professor, they will calculate the margin of error. But for us, I don't need the margin of error, so that I'm going to shut it off and reduce the size of the table. Now, in this table, now it shows here the latest, the 2020 5-year estimates data. So I'm still using the 2019, but I'll leave the 2020 up there. Let me tell you about why the 5-year matters. In the American Community Survey, we do 2 releases a year. 1-year release for entities that are 65,000 and higher. And then we do a 5-year release for entities below 65,000 plus, the plus is the key, plus zip codes, census tracts. So any city or town or county that's under 65,000 comes out with the 5-year release. Plus, in the 5-year release, you guess when you get your zip codes and your census tract data. So these profiles that I'm showing you now can be accessed at the census tract level. And many of you like to look at tract data because a lot of the things that Dr. Goldsmith talked about, you want to track them down to your service area. So one of the things that I want you to do is to remember that. So if you're looking for zip code or tract data, it has to be the 5-year estimates for the American Community Survey. Now, if it's above 65,000, you're just looking for the state or large county, then you can look at the 1 year. The new 1 year for 2021 will be out next week. So this is like breaking news next week. The 5-year for 2021 will be released in December, early December. And that's the standard pattern. Of course, 2020 threw that off, but standard September is for the 1-year release and December is for the 5-year release. So right now, I would recommend if you need census tract data or zip code data, you look at the 2020 or the 2019 or 2020 5-year estimate, which is what I'm looking at now. But I want you to look at how the table is laid out. What is it laid out? It shows the total population, as you can see. Then it breaks it down by male and female. And as you can see in 2020, I used the 2019 for 50.8 because I've been using that all year. But look, we've gone up 51.1. We're just beating them, just coming and going. And then it breaks down the number of males to females, 95.7 in the state. That may vary by county and city. And then the age cohorts, and then the median age. And as you can see in Florida, we have a high median age because a fourth of our population is 65 and over. We're now it's down to a fifth, right? 20%, 28.5%. That's a lot of people. So you get some characteristics. Then we go down to race. This is going to be interesting for you because many of you have called me and asked, you have one race and then you have 2 or more races. What does that mean? Well, in 2000, for the first time in history, you could choose to be more than one race. So instead of having basic 6 race categories, we now have 63. 63, because we have 57 multiracial combinations. We don't say multiracial in census speak, we say 2 or more races. So as you can see, with the one race population, 94% of the Florida population classify themselves as one race. But then 6% classify themselves as more than one race, multiracial. So in your area, it may be higher, it may be lower. So here are the one race categories. You could be white alone, Black or African American alone, American Indian and Alaska alone, Asian alone, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander alone, or some other race alone. And then under 2 or more races, in this profile, we have the large 2 or more races, white and Black, white and American Indian, white and Asian, I think it's Black and American Indian. So I tell people, and they call, it says, Marilyn, if we put in the census questionnaire and say that we're American Indian, can we get some casino money? The answer is no. Trust me, I have met with several tribal chairs and asked that same question. But tribal enrollment is not because of the census. So what we did is that, now those of you that write grants, this is a category for you. Here where you see race alone or in combination, what you have up here are respondents, individuals. What you have in this tabulation, race alone or in combination, We have taken everyone that responded to being white, whether you're white alone or white and black, we tabulated you here. Or you were black alone or black and white or black, white and Asian, whatever it is. So these are responses. So this is another data point that you can use. Why? Because people chose this maybe a part of their social conscience. I don't know. Now, Florida, because we have a huge Hispanic population in the state, as you can see, 25.8% of our population is of Hispanic origin, right? And Hispanics can be of any race. And by federal standards, Hispanic is not a race, but an ethnic group. It's the largest ethnic group, and they can be of any race. So we list the three largest groups of the Hispanic population: the Mexicans, the Puerto Ricans, Cubans, and then we say who's not Hispanic. So when you look at Florida and you see at the top where the white population is 71.6% of the population, but when we back out the white Hispanics, the non-Hispanic white population, which is considered is the majority population, it drops down to 53.4. So did everybody see that? Okay. And then, of course, we have the voting age population in DP05. So there's another one. I'm going to go back to my filters. I'm going to take out 05 and go to DP02. And I'm going to tell it to search for DP02. DP02, these are social characteristics. Take out the margin of error. What do we find in DP02? Remember, in the data profiles, there are only 4 files: DP05, DP02, DP03, DP04. And I know the educators are saying, well, what happened to DP01? You all count, and I don't see where you're counting too well. What it was is that before we had the American Community Survey, every census we would put out a DP01, just a basic general demographic and housing characteristics. So when we put out the American Community Survey, rather than confuse people, we kept DP01 for those decennial censuses once every 10 years and just added that corresponding table, which is the same in ACS, the American Community Survey, but we named it DP05. So we're there, educators, let it go, just let it go. So here's the social profile. Households by type, and this is how we speak. We list in this profile how many households we have in the state. Then we break them down. How many of them are family households, which means that the people in the household are related to the head of household through marriage, birth, or adoption. Then we say how many of those family households have minor children. The educators want to know that because, you know, K through 12, we need children in those schools. Then we break it down by married couple families. And then we say how many married couple families have their own minor children. And then we look at the male householders with no wife or partner or spouse present. And we look at that number and then we said, how many of them have their own minor kids? Well, these would be our single fathers. And as you can see, statewide is 2.1%. Then we look at the female household, and the new terminology really is no spouse or partner present family. And you see that's 13.3%, but of that, 7%, 6.9% are single mothers. So this may be a data point that you need for your particular zip code or the census tract in your service areas or your city. And then we look at non-family households and how many of those are seniors. Then how many households with one or more people that are minors. And as you can see, that's almost a third of the households in the state. And then household relationship. And that next year, when we release all the other data from the 2020 census, the only thing we've released so far has been the redistricting file, which is restricted by law. It only contains certain things. That's the only place where you'll be able to delineate, see delineated all 63 racial categories. And because Florida is a very diverse state, you can imagine that every line is populated. So when you go down, so household relationship was a historic question on the questionnaire. For the first time, we have 16 options for household relationship. We included same-sex unmarried couples, same-sex married couples, opposite-sex married couples, opposite-sex unmarried couples. So there's so many in-laws, parents, everybody. So now we'll be able to see how the family has changed over time. This was the first time that we had 16 options for that particular question. So we're looking forward to that. And the other one was you could choose to put your country of origin under race. That had never happened before in any census. So now we'll be able to look at the diasporas. So that's coming out next year. So these are things that are in the social profile. Another one, many of you work with single parents, but you may not have thought about, but I'm sure the educators know about this, grandparents being caregivers. That's not anything new. But in 2000, Congress was, there was a codicil in the Welfare Reform Act, and they needed some data on grandparents that were raising their grandchildren, and there was none. So we added that question on the questionnaire: how many grandparents occupy the household of their minor grandkids? And of that group, how many are the primary caregivers? They're the ones that are responsible for those children. So we came up with that question, and now it's on all the American Community Survey and other surveys. And as you can see, the length of time the grandparents are primary caregivers, they don't bring them over at 9 and they pick them up at 4. They bring them in 2022 and get them in 2029. So that's different. And then you don't see it here, but I'm going to do one little switch. You can see it won't let me switch. I was going to do a switch and look at wait a minute, I want to do that. And look at what it is, the number of grandparents that are female. And then educational attainment. This is where it is. We list it here. Now, the reason I'm showing you these data profiles is for one big reason. And that reason is, and of course, we have a large foreign-born population. If you're in Miami-Dade County, it's nearly about 55% foreign-born in the county and other places around the state. The reason I'm showing you this is because now when you look at these various subjects, here it's computer and internet use. We found out the hard way, and let me find out why it is not filtering right. It should not be on 2010. It should be on it should be on 2020. That's okay. I'm having some type of technical glitch here that I haven't seen in a while, but it's pretty crazy. But I'm gonna roll with it. Okay, computer. I know that this is not right, but that's okay. So it should have 2020, and it should default to it, but it won't. It did, and it just made up its mind to change. Okay, my feelings are not hurt. And the reason I'm showing you this is because we do have information, and it's populated. It's not populated on this particular one because, let's see if I can change the years. No, it won't change them. Wow. Never had that glitch before. But because we weren't asking the question then. But if it populated them, I could do that. So, but the purpose of this exercise is to show you that you can do this. And it won't act crazy on you. I guarantee that, kind of. So let me go, I'm gonna go out and come back in and see if it'll act right. And the way I went out of it is that I clicked on the logo and it took me back to data.census.gov. And as you can see, the 2020 is there. I knew it. I knew it was a glitch. Take out the nation and put in the state. I want you to know that things happen. And when you go live, you take your life in your hands. Because if it can go wrong, it will. Okay, now I'm gonna click on the, as you, now we're working. Okay, now we're cooking with grease. So now you see all the years that you can just click on them. The one, I'm in the 2025 year because this is what is the default. I'm gonna take a chance and go down to the 2019. Bingo, 5 year. Okay. But now, if I want to compare my service area with the state of Florida, I would have to do it in the 5 year because zip codes and tracks are only in the 5 year. So I can't get them in the 1 year. But if I want to compare Broward County to Florida, or to Miami-Dade, or to Palm Beach, or to Hillsborough, or to Duval, or any of the orange, the larger, those counties that are 65,000 and higher, I can use the 1 year estimates. So if you're doing large cities over 65,000 and counties, next week when the new data comes out, you'll be able to get that right. You could be able to get that. Okay, so let me hurry up. I'm glad I had a little extra time. I get so excited about this, I have to calm myself down. So I'm going to go to the economic table. So we've gone through the demographic table, we've gone to the economic table. And remember, I told you that we have 1,500 subject tables. So many of you may have piqued your interest about grandparents. Then you can go and you can search for grandparents here in the search box, and then it will show you the tables that we have that pertain to grandparents because they're subject tables. Now you're getting more information. Okay? So this is a social characteristic. We've done social, here's economic. And here you will find out unemployment in your service area, even though the official unemployment rates come from the Department of Labor, but we do ask about employment in the American Community Survey, so we were able to put a data point out, so you'll be able to gauge in the various census tracts for your grants and for other things that you need for your reports. Commuting time to work, occupation. I'm going to show you a table about this that just blew me away when it looks at men and women. Here, occupation, industry, class of worker, income. This is where you get your median household income and your median family income. I suggest using median family income in areas where you have a high number of families. That number is always a larger number, but you use the number that's best for you. This is where you can find out the percent of people that are on food stamps in your service areas by tract and by zip code, by city, by county. And then here's the family income. And then non-family, median earnings. Look at this. Look at this, lady. Look, median full-time earnings for men and for women. Health insurance coverage is in this profile. Percentage of families that at the poverty level and below. All of that is in this profile. And then the next profile is housing. Now, these are 4 profiles that I suggest that you get. You can download them right here in an Excel spreadsheet. Because most of my work is done in Florida now. I keep these. I put Florida on, and I got all the counties. So if someone calls me and maybe the system is down, maybe it was like last night. I was looking at the window, and all of a sudden, all the lights went out in the subdivision, and I said, "This is real spooky." And they were out for about 25 to 30 seconds. And it was weird. And they came back on. I was like, okay, that's lights out for me. So now here's housing and some of the things that Dr. Goldsmith talked about. It shows you occupied housing units in the state. We have a vacancy rate in the state of 17%, but it may be higher in your area. I'm telling you. And then when you look at how many structures units in the structure when they were built, how many rooms, lets us know about overcrowding, and then owner-occupied versus renter-occupied. In some of your service areas, these numbers are going to be flipped. where you're going to have 71% renters. And you can see when you talk about how much rents are. And as you scroll down, how the homes are heated. My big concern is that Florida is #1 in the nation when it comes to the use of electricity. So anytime I know that if a grid or something goes out in our state and we have a bad hurricane or whatever, a lot of people are going to be negatively impacted. And that is a concern of mine. Owner occupied, gives you the median housing value. How many have a mortgage? What that mortgage housing unit is with a mortgage, without a mortgage, as well as rents. So you can get this down to the tract level. So now you're looking at neighborhoods. And that's why these 4 profiles are so important. And then I talked about, before I leave, I've got to do this, subject profile. So I'm going to put a subject in here, another subject. And the subject I'm going to put in, I want to show you grandparents first, so you can see when it populates those tables. So now you see the tables that we have on grandparents. This talks about grandparents here, their age, their race, whether they're native born or foreign born, their median income, if they're on public assistance, their poverty level, if they're owners or renters, how many units in their structure, then here about the age of the grandchild living with them, median family income for families with grandparent households. So these are subject tables. See, now when you get to subjects, now you're going to go deeper. So the first subject you always see on these demographic tables is sex by age, right? We break it down. So let's look at the number of tables we have when we say sex by age. When you look at the tables that we have, sex by age, what happened? Oh, it moved itself over. Okay, fine. Whatever works. So here you see sex by age. And look at all the tables. 60 and over, 65 and over. Commuting patterns, the characteristics, how you commute. Characteristics of people with a marital event. And of course, divorce is a marital event. I know. Then educational attainment. You click on that table and it populates. And and then you have occupation by sex. And then you have occupation by sex for full-time, year-round. So let's stop on that particular subject, because when you looked at the social profile, it showed you about occupation. So now you're able to take a look at, and which is what I did, at these full-time, these jobs, right? So I'm going to try to move this over. Let's see. So I can see males and females, right? Okay. Move it up a little more. We know the males are first. Get the females in here. Okay. Now you see that in management, business, science, and arts occupation, 50% of them are occupied by women. But when you break that down to management, business, and financial occupations, most of them are men. And when you get to management occupations, most of them are men. But when you go back to business and financial operation occupations, women dominate. But look at computer engineering and science occupation. 76% are men. Computer and math. So when you are working on STEM projects, occupations, now you can look at these by males and females. And in your service area, you can look at these by tract, and you can look at these by zip code. So those, I gave you your main profiles, DP5, DP2, DP3, DP4. I'm going to send to Kelly some links to the list of the profiles, all 1,500, just so that you could just nerd out. And then a list of the 90 ranking tables. You can see where the states rank. You know, when I go meet with governors, I take the ranking tables in their folder. And I'm telling you, it stops the meeting. So I know that my time is almost up. I think I have maybe 5 minutes, and I'm going to stop now so that I can take some questions. I can't hear you guys. I can hear something, but someone's not at the microphone. And I can't see you guys. Can you see me? What happened? What happened? I'm here. Am I? Am I here? Kelly, I can't see the room, and I can't hear the questions.
Greetings, Marilyn. I have a question. I'm Venice White with the Office of Minority Health and Health Equity with the Florida Department of Health, and I teach cultural competency and health equity around the state. So I have 2 questions about the census collection. One is maybe an aha, but when it's advising and giving examples for the race, under white, the example is provided one who is from Egypt, and under Black, African American, it gives an example, one who is from Ethiopia. Last time I checked, Egypt and Ethiopia are both from Africa. How did you all select that if you're from Egypt, which is in Africa, you're white, versus if you're from Ethiopia, you should select Black?
Right. That is a question that I get all the time, surprisingly. We have a certain way that we codify race, and race has changed over time since the first census in 1790. So right now, what was discussed coming up to the 2020 census was to have a new racial category called MENA, Middle Eastern North African. So you'll hear people talk about MENA. We feel that will correct this particular problem. But how we codify race has changed over time. So, but it's how do you see you? So that's why I'm looking forward to next year when I look at country of origin to see where people put their where their country of origin is as it pertains to their race. Because from 1960 forward, you could choose your own race. It was self-identification. Two hours on the evolution of race for the University of Mississippi. I said they probably won't ever invite me back. But anyway, to really look at how it changed over time and the things that Congress demanded was just unreal. So this MENA category, Middle Eastern Northern African, I think is going to solve that problem. However, next year, I'm looking forward to seeing when that data is released about country of origin under race, how many people in those areas put their country of origin under Black. I'm really waiting for that. That should have been out this year because I was going to retire after they released it. And then when I told somebody, I would say, once they released it, I'm going to retire. And then someone said, guess what, Marilyn? They moved it back, so you have to stay. And I'm thinking, what? Does that answer your question?
It does, and you blanked out for a minute, and I have a second question.
Okay?
It's not on the census, but if you look at some of the other federal registries, for example, Social Security, and I believe if you're applying for birth certificates, at least for the state of Florida, under ethnicity, and for those who don't know, race and ethnicity, that's two different boxes, is not one or the other, okay? I work for today, I get my paycheck. In some documents, under ethnicity, you have Hispanic, non-Hispanic, and Haitian. I've seen documents where Haitian is listed as one of the choices for ethnicity. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. Okay, for the Census Bureau under race, when we say black, we say people of those certain countries of African, of blacks, and then Haiti, Jamaica, Trinidad, the Virgin Islands, and other places. So the race would be black, but the ethnicity would be Haitian or non-Hispanic. Like I'm a non-Hispanic black. I have a friend, which there's a colleague for years. I never knew that she had one parent is Cuban and one parent is from Honduras. And so I was speaking at a conference and she came up to me and she said, so how would I classify myself? And when she told me about her lineage, I said, you're Hispanic? And she says, yes. I said, do you speak Spanish? And she says, yes. And I said, I never knew that. And most people didn't. And so I said, now this, as of 2000, when you check Hispanic, because you are, then you can put down both parents, Honduras and Cuban. And then I said, what you got? She said, no, we never just checked it. We always just check black because we're black. I said, well, now you can be both on the census.
Thank you for that. I have a question about influencing categories. I'm an anthropologist by training, and back when the Office of Management and Budget were tweaking their ethnicity, race, and other categories, they invited professionals from out in the field to respond. And I was wondering, I have two questions. One, is there an intersection between the OMB's categorization of citizens and the census? And then second, we have a lot of decision makers and engaged, very intelligent women in the audience. If we want to influence the process of categorizing our community, how do we get involved?
Well, remember, we're federal, and the Office of Management and Budget, they do set the standards for race and ethnicity in the United States. That's the baseline. Well, you guys can call me offline. I think I did put a slide up with my contact information on it, didn't I? Or didn't I? Let me see. Did I or didn't I? Let me see.
One at each table.
Yes, you can call me. Oh, that was the wrong one. This should have been the one. Okay. I'm trying to put my contact information. You can call me directly. Okay, now you have my contact information. And don't be afraid to dial that number. That is your taxpayer-funded census phone. And so you can call me anytime. But remember, that's federal. So any changes you want to make to anything federal, I would suggest you go to your congressperson. And it's quite a process. If you'll remember, I'm sure in your studies, where we used to use the term Asian, and then over time, the Asian community said that most of the community, they don't identify with the term Asian, they identify with their country of origin. So they're Japanese, Chinese except Taiwanese, Vietnamese. So as you can see, you see on the questionnaire that we have those various groups listed.
Marilyn, this is Commissioner Barreto on behalf of the commission and everybody in the room. Thank you so very, very much for joining us today. That was fantastic.